If you had a logo on your chest, you look like part of the background.
Where are you at today?
I'm at the beach, actually. I was going to have it that way, show the beach, but it's kind of
That's awesome. Yeah, very cool.
this way.
I love it. Yeah, that's a good beach look. I like it.
It's just kind of bright that way. See, shadows makes me too
Yeah, a
dark.
little bit more shadowy. So, Matt is live at the beach. I'm live in Chicago at the Board of Trade building, 141 Jackson. This is lunch with Lumbermen with Matt Lehman from Lehman's Lumber Guide. I'm with Materials Exchange. That's mxlumber.com. We're the only way to buy and sell lumber digitally. We are out there. You can bid, ask, put on prices, bid on prices, ask on prices, look delivered to you, and help enhance the way that you're currently doing in the old school call around good old boy network, which we love the good old boy network also, don't we, Matt?
Absolutely. That's what makes the world go round.
Absolutely, it makes the world go round. So let's talk a little bit about the market this week and last week. We're coming off a good call with award-winning economist Brian Westborough. We talked a little bit about why inflation wasn't transitory in some cases, and about how much money is sloshing around in the M2 part of our economy, which was different from 2009. So, and I talked to Matt a little bit about that before this show. But one thing I want to talk about, Matt, is market. So, my gosh, the world that you live in, the lumber world, but not only that, the pine world. Pine is going nuts right now, right? Southern yellow pine.
People are acting like there's never going to be lumber again. It's the most craziest thing I've ever seen. I was at a builder connection thing yesterday in Dallas with about 45 of the top home builders in the country. And we had a panel with these panel discussion things. And the thing that I was amazed about is they just had no questions about lumber.
Yeah.
We're back in a spot where we're half the value of what it was from the peak, but probably about a third more of the value was before the pandemic. So price of lumber is not cheap at $600-700 a thousand at the mill, $800 or $900 delivered to the job site. That's certainly not inexpensive, but builders don't seem to be worried about lumber right now. But they just got everything going wide open. Their expectations are going to do 10% more next year than they did this year. They got the green light given to the contractor yards, the LBMs, the home centers, truss manufacturers. Everybody's got the green light to just buy lumber and just keep going forever. And I'm afraid we're doing the same thing we did the first of the year where we peaked out in May. That was just now the business got bad. It's just that we just outkicked our coverage and got way ahead of ourselves. And it seems like the same thing's happening again.
Yeah, good thing. So one thing we talked about yesterday is this home building cycle being like a barbell. At both ends. So maybe you heard something like this yesterday, or maybe you didn't. One of the guys was saying yesterday, a lot of these builders now, they're not as worried about price on certain things. This is how I heard it, because you know what? They're just not putting the houses up for sale. One, they know they can sell them when they list them right now.
Right.
So they're not selling them early. They don't have to. They're waiting till they get all their costs in, even though they're higher, build them in with their profit, and then list them. So what happens in the meantime is there's kind of a lag with new houses on the market, because the builders know that when they list them, they're going to sell them. Why would you list them 2 or 3 months early or pre-sell them when you know there's going to be inflationary prices or lack of availability of things? You don't have to. Does that sound right?
Yeah, and what that's going to look like is going to look like weak housing. Pending sales are going to go down, inventories are going to go up, and all it is builders just protecting protecting their costs. They don't know what it's going to be or when it's going to be. The average delay time for new home construction right now is 60 days. That's kind of the industry standard. That's what I heard yesterday, that they're all saying that whatever their length of time was to build, it's like 6 months, 8 months now. It's a couple of months longer. So
yeah,
but everybody's used to it. I mean, everybody knows this is the deal.
Homes under construction. I think Brian was saying this yesterday, that number is tracking a lot higher. I think that's the homes that are not finished, because
currently under construction. Yeah,
under construction, because like I said, these guys we don't have to sell them until they're done. So it was a good show you went to yesterday then in Dallas.
Yeah, it was just a bunch. It was actually just purchasing agents for the purchasing arms for probably 40 of the top 100 home builders in the country. It's put on by Zonda. I think met a guy there that's probably on the show right now watching. But he said he found it very interesting about what we were talking about, and they're just, I mean, it's interesting that they're in the housing sector just for information that they're tuning in to see what's going on the lumber side of things as well.
Well, it's great. It's
Yeah.
great they tune in. I mean, look at you and I saw at the BCMC and all that. A lot of these people don't know how their lumber is bought and how the sausage is made, right? And the more, because a lot of times these builders, it gets touched 6 or 7 times down the chain before they see it. Sometimes not as many. Some builders are internalizing it, but that's great. Great to hear that people are watching the show outside of that. But if you get,
I think, one of the things I got out of yesterday's event was still for builders, I think the lumber market's overwhelming. There's just so much to it. I mean, so much happens from the time a tree gets cut till the 2x4 gets held up in a house. There's so many things that happen to it, and they want to try to get involved in the lumber business. They got to realize what's involved to take one of their handlers out of the middle of the handling process. It's not a simple thing. A wholesaler has a function, and a retail lumberyard has a function. A truss manufacturer, the wood preserver, everybody provides a service that the builder can't do, and the builder provides a service that the homeowner can't do. So there's a place for everybody, but it's the thing is I still find quite amazing is the amount of lumber that's in storage that's been pre-bought for jobs that are coming up in the first quarter next year. I feel like the market's overbought and we're going to peak early next year, but not anything bad about business, but I think we're just way ahead of ourselves as far as coverage goes. Not just in lumber, but in everything else too.
Yes, certainly. Not to belabor a point we talk about. All the reloads are full, and we'll flex into this next question. Talking to a couple people I know, they have put reloads all over the place now because trucking freight is so high. So let's talk about trucking freight. Nick here said we were looking at something the other day, and there was a $10 a mile rate on one of these hauls.
Yeah,
right? So
that's not uncommon.
So everybody's just putting this wood on the ground and thought they had $1,000 haul and now have a $3,000 haul.
Yeah, I was thinking we talked about this earlier before we started, that people are using reloads and warehouses to be able to get the product closer to their job site and have it ready when they need it. But still, when you call a trucker today, if you're looking for say you got a reload in Atlanta and you're trying to ship something to Augusta, and maybe it's 150 or 200 miles or however far it's going to be for your shipment, you not only have to get paid $7 to $10 a mile, but you're going to have to wait 2 or 3 weeks to get the trucker to pick it up. Just because you've got it sitting closer by doesn't mean you're going to get a trucker any quicker to come pick it up. So you got to really plan your logistics and your scheduling for when you're going to get that lumber out of your storage to get it on the job site, because you may still end up having 2 or 3 week delays on lumber that you already own and paying an extra $100, $1,000 to get it delivered 2 weeks later than you want it.
Well, it's interesting. If anybody's in the market to buy a reload, I know one for sale in the eastern part of the U.S. So you can give me a call and I'll hook you up with them. So let's talk a little bit about, one of your users, or a person we both know really well. She was saying how much it costs for her now relative to what.
Yeah, it was $7 a mile from the Washington, Georgia area and mid Georgia going to South Georgia, and you think you're centrally located, and then all of a sudden you get the bill. She said just to move the lumber for one of the projects is going to cost her an extra $30,000 just to get it out of the reload to get it to the job site.
Yeah. So with that in mind, I mean, what was somebody like that probably planning when they put the wood on the ground? Half of that price?
I don't know that it was even thought about. I think it was just thought about like it's close by. It won't be much. And honestly, I don't think anybody really considered like the outbound freight was going to be a difficulty, or even the availability of getting your lumber out of storage was going to be a difficult thing. But from the time that lumber was bought 3 or 4 months ago, a lot has changed in the transportation industry.
Yeah, no, that's also the incentive. And we're setting up the MX network of reloads where you want to get into a place where there's actual trucking, where if it's close enough, they've got pretty well set rates. Obviously, they have to go up with gas prices and so forth, but you're not dealing with a 3PL. You're dealing with an asset owner of stuff in a reload that is willing to ship stuff around at a certain rate. But
what you don't know, though, is you don't know if his drivers are still going to be available if they get an offer to go someplace else.
So true.
Get triple the wage. Yeah, they may have the trucks, but they got to have somebody to drive them.
So, Matt, you pointed out on your October 20th edition of Another Dimension, Stacking the Odds. There's some good stats on here. Let's pull them up and take a look at them, and maybe you can highlight a little bit about what your thoughts are here and some of the stuff we didn't know.
Well, I've been doing this for almost 40 years, and I just was sitting down yesterday getting ready to make a presentation to these builders a couple of days ago, and I was getting my thoughts together, and they specifically said, what would you advise for home builder buyers to do differently in 2022 than they did in 2021? And my answer was, understand the cycles of the lumber market. So I just kind of put together like, well, how do I explain that in a half a sheet of paper to 40 guys that are eating breakfast? And so I just looked back over the past 21 years, which is just the data that I had handy at the time, and noticed that November is up over the last 21 years. November finishes the month higher 85% of the time. And December is up 70% over the last 20 years, 70% of the time. January is up 71%, February is up 71%, and then all of a sudden it switches. So, which gives credence to my thought that the market bottoms, not necessarily bottoms, but the best up cycle is the end of August or end of October, first week of November through the end of February. That's the most consistently repeating cycle of the lumber market going on the upside is from November to through February.
That's the seasonal, right?
And it's seasonal, but the reasons are always different. But it always still happens. There's some fear of supply. There's a hurricane. There's COVID. There's always some reason. But for 19 and 20, it's interesting. The 2 years that it didn't do that was 2014 and 2008, and there were maybe it's 2008, 2014, and the change in price was only one year was $15 lower, and the other was $30 lower. So it wasn't a big. It was almost kind of unchanged for that period, but it wasn't a huge miss. So if you were right now, get a lot of people that are questioning, wondering why we didn't get this October pullback. But the other thing I realized too, if you look down at the bottom, September and October over those last 21 years have been 50 down. So September and October, historically, I would have thought September was an up month and October was a down month, but they're actually just flat. So you got a 50-50 chance of being higher or lower, but still that doesn't change the fact that even if prices are higher this October than they were in August, that still doesn't change the likelihood that prices are going to go higher between November and February. If that makes any sense.
Yeah, it does make sense. It does make sense. I think these are good statistics for people to. You made the comment that most people that are in the home building industry don't. These are stats that you really want to look into, right?
Here's another interesting one: is May through August is down 67% of the time. It's not as good as 90% on the upside, but the uptrend is more predictable or more repeatable than the downtrend. But my single piece of advice that I give to everybody, Mills don't like to hear me say this, but if you could not ever buy anything in May, you'd save yourself a ton of money. If you could just sometime in April or February, March, April, buy through May and not have to buy anything until the end of May, you're going to miss that 76% chance that the market's going to go down in May. You just want to be away from it.
One interesting stat we were talking about yesterday's meeting. Brian was saying the housing numbers that came out this week that were low. He attributed a large portion of that to the hurricane or the storm that went in and went all the way up the East Coast. Last month, it said that definitely slowed things down also, right? A little bit.
Well, the other thing is the reason it's slowing is builders are intentionally trying to roll it back. They told us in May last year they wanted to get rid of that 12-month order file and get back down to a 3-month order file, and that's all they're doing. Is the primary driver for lower numbers on the housing market is the dealers are intentionally reducing order files and trying to get control of prices that they have no idea when the products are going to be available.
That's true. That's true.
Here's things like garage door openers are keeping guys from closing a home.
Yeah, no pun intended, right?
Yep. You're too quick.
So let's go over to your 2x4. We're going to start there on the 2x4 chart, and then I want to kind of go over to this 2x4 to the pine chart. But let's look at just your 2x4. Everything obviously is tilted up, right? Starting to move. So
here's what that tells you right there. Just look at that picture. I talk about inventory shift. Does the mill have the inventory? If the mill has the inventory, prices are weak. But it also means that the consumers do not have the inventory; they're ready to buy. So if you look at this thing, The market went up in September. It's going up in October. It's clearly an inventory accumulation period when typically the market is flat. So inventories in the fields are getting higher, and it's just the inventory shifting from the mill to the consumers, and new consumers like developers, multifamily builders, people that are buying large chunks of jobs. We saw a lot of the multifamily business that got delayed the first part of the year came back and got bought this summer. We had a big surge in multifamily, not this past month, but the month before. I think this past month was off a little bit, but it was just all of that old business coming back, and that stuff's bought. It's just sitting on the ground. Those are projects that are going to start in January, February, March, and the wood's already been bought for it.
Yeah, good point. Let's go over to your 2x4 Southern Pine chart, Matt. So what I'm noticing is a lot of the low grade is darn near impossible to get. 2x8 is drying up right now in Southern Yellow Pine because they're cutting it all to 2x4. 2x4 Southern Pine and low grade and high grade, you can't find. A couple mills that are partners with us split some out for us today, which was good because they want to see us successful. But 2x4 and low grades are hard to find, right?
Well, that's mainly because of we talked about this earlier in the year too, that the optimization that's occurred in the industry over the past 5 years has really reduced the amount of low grade. So number 3, number 4 is like 5% of total production, where it used to be about 15 to 20%. So there's just not a lot of it. And pallet manufacturers don't want you shipping number 2 because they're afraid their customers are going to get used to what that pallet looks like. So they'd really rather wait for the number 3. And even if they got to pay the same price for it, they just don't want to spoil their customers to get them used to number 2 or a good looking product. But it's just the availability. And one of the questions I got yesterday at the Builder Summit was, what about EWP? He said, what's the solution for EWP? And my first gut reaction was floor trusses. That's the only solution. And when this market first started back in the spring, when EWP started to get tough to get, the spread between prices between EWP and trusses was ridiculous. I mean, builders were saying, "There's no way I'll use trusses. It's too expensive." And my comment says, "Well, so what are you going to use? You're going to use nothing. If EWP is not available, you're not going to use trusses. You can't use anything."
Right.
Because wood or whatever the engineered wood products are going to be. But it's the same situation now. Floor trusses are out 6 to 7 months from a lot of places. EWP is not getting any better, so that's just going to keep a lot of pressure on Southern Pine because it's the best structurally valued species that there is to make floor trusses out of.
Yeah, here's an interesting thing I'm seeing. So I talked about it the other day. 2x6 number 1 Southern Yellow Pine is popping up all over the Midwest now. Now it's there for treaters and all that, but some of the low grade people that built crates and pallets that were buying 2x6 spruce number 3 and all that are bringing this up because it has no call rate on it, right? And it was lower for a while. So you know what I'm saying? Does that make sense? So you're seeing
It's got no call rate, but if you're again, you got your customer you all of a sudden you improve the quality of your product for your customer, and they all tickled, say, "Oh, I'm paying these higher prices, and look at this, look how good my product is." So the market starts to fall, and you go, "Wait a minute, I want that good product." So, well, you got to pay for the number 2 price again. So
yeah, that was always the funniest thing in this market. Sometimes we're afraid to send somebody a premium product at the same price because they'd like it too much, and next time you send them what they normally get, they're like, "Well, I want that other stuff," right?
Yeah, treaters don't particularly like to get one dents when they're trying to treat something anyway. They want softer products so it'll absorb the chemical. So you don't want to get, that happens sometimes when the MSR gets to be a little fluffy or in abundance. So mills will start shipping MSR to treaters. They don't really like that.
So here's a question for you. Well, where's all the MSR at?
It's on the truss manufacturer's yard waiting to get built.
Yeah, I mean, we've got all kinds of bids, and some people are hitting them, but there's a lot more people bidding MSR on our site than there are sellers right now. And these are big numbers people are bidding on. So is that all? Is that just spoken for the next 2 or 3 months from all the mills?
I think it's just a function of EWP. It's just the floor truss guys they've got huge order files. They've got lumber bought. They've got it sold. So they've got to buy it. They've got it committed for. So anything a mill shows, if you got a 7-month order file, you got to buy everything that you see, regardless of what the price is. And just like we did back in the spring when the building supplies were buying everything they could buy just because the builders were saying, "Don't let me run out." And now the truss guys are sitting there with 7 months worth of orders. Now that's going to be extreme. I was telling one guy yesterday, said they were 6 to 7 weeks, but they're intentionally not order file out because they don't want to get everybody in trouble. But yeah, it's just a function of pre-selling homes, pre-selling packages, pre-selling the whole floor truss system and everything. It's just just buying it like there's not going to be any more of it around. But sooner or later we got to go back to that. What's that number of completions? You can start 2 million homes, but if you're only completing 1.3 million,
you may want to take that down.
Somewhere along the line there's going to be a loop.
Yeah. Let's look at the 2x4 Canadian spruce. Anything there, Matt? I mean, look at the basis. The basis is coming in. What were Mike? What were futures just now?
Down 11.6.
So futures.
I think they're up
futures
about $20.
So futures are down 11 just now, I think, or
Yeah, trading 665.
665. Does that make sense? So that basis is starting to come in a little bit, which
we're down to
$75.
Yep. But it's a
the
spread.
new number.
Mike said
The new number for the mills today is 610 for shipment. Same shipment as the board at 665. And the question one guy asked today says, "Why in the world would a mill offer 610 cash market when you can get 660 on the board?" It's just crazy. Why would you even do that? It just doesn't make sense. But
yeah, I mean, but as these mills get bigger and all that, there's who knows, some of them are in, some of them are. We had 2 or 3 people call us this week saying, we watched your show the other day. These are guys that have been in the industry for 10 or 20 years. How do we deliver into the board? I'm like, if you don't know that by now, I'm gonna have to charge you to ask me that question, right?
Well, I'll tell you the answer. You've got to buy it from somebody who will let you deliver it.
Exactly what you got to do.
And right now, the 2 major players in Canada that are making deliveries into the board want destinations given the order. They won't let you just ship it to Chicago for furthest anymore. And if it's going to a customer they sell to, they won't take your order. So you're kind of screwed. Even though the basis may work and the numbers will work, if the mill won't accept your order because it's going to some place like, for example, West Fraser to a BFS or something like that, they just said, no, that's a protected customer. You can't ship to them. And they just won't let you do it. So the numbers are there, the numbers work, but it's just physically impossible to get it done.
Sounds like that's an issue that they maybe got to look into, because that's going to make the basis go out if there's not a free market to deliver into.
Well, there's not. It's not. It's very limited. I think I've heard of probably 3, maybe 4 Canadian mills that make deliveries. One guy that make deliveries, and those are your only options. If they won't let you deliver to some place for furtherance and have an option to sell the car later on, then you're kind of screwed. Or even if you have it sold, if it's one of their customers, they don't want you to get in the middle of that. They just won't let you have it. But one guy was asking me today about the basis. He said, "Where do you get your basis numbers from?" Because I'm checking to Boston, and my basis numbers are different. And there's somebody that's just looking at the futures market completely upside down because you can't deliver from the east side. You can't use a basis to Boston. It's got to be, you're very restricted. It's got to basically be less than half a dozen mills out of British Columbia, and you got to have a delivered destination.
You can EFP and all that, but since most people don't even know what a futures car looks like, sometimes that you talk to them about EFPing, and that just blows their mind, right? Although EFPing used to be a big thing back in the day. I saw Greg Kuda was on here. He's good about EFPing and the information on that one. Hey, Greg, glad he said the convergence is playing out and distribution can do this. I think he was talking about EFPing or something, which they can, but the fact is, I think
distribution can do it because their distribution can do it because they're a designated customer of the mill.
Yeah. Yeah, well, what sounds to me like, in my own personal opinion, CME has to figure out a way to let other people deliver without having to worry about that.
Hey, you want to talk about CME for a little bit?
Not. I don't know. Probably not. I don't want to poke that bear.
No,
let's go and just check out. So Green Doug Fir, not much. Let's look at the 7/16 OSB chart. That's the one thing I've actually seen some plywood and panel products tried to catch on here. They're trying to build an order file, but I don't see as much tenacity on that or movement on that as I do on lumber.
If you look at that chart, it's doing exactly what it's supposed to do this time of year, which is just go sideways.
Yeah, yeah, and I mean those
Yeah.
people are probably buying that stuff and holding it too, but it just keeps moving sideways, right? It had a little uptick in the last few weeks. It certainly found a bottom back there in week 32, 33, but I just don't see it finding the same love as lumber, right?
When I was in Dallas yesterday, I was riding back to the airport, and I saw a huge apartment complex that was just they were pouring the footings, and they had it looked like all the lumber and the plywood or OSB on the ground, just sitting out in the elements, and there were literally, I bet there were 7 truckloads of OSB just sitting outside on the ground. That stuff's good, and I would assume they don't know that stuff's not made to be sitting in the sun and get rained on, and it's just going to swell up like a sandwich before they get to use it.
Unless it's got the Gorilla Glue in it, then you can basically
And then you can't get them apart.
Yeah, they can't get what do you call it? So let's go back over to the framing package in kind of.
Oh, here's something to notice about OB. To go back a minute.
Yeah, let's
the
go back
premium
to
between the premiums between underlayment and 7/16 is abnormally high. If you notice, last year we were 660. Last year premiums were usually about 50 to $100. They're like $400. So they have about, I think the premium in the sturdy floor is about $200 too high over the 7/16. So as tough as that is to find, you can see it's still softening up a little bit because people are rejecting that price.
Yeah, that's a big. The thicker panels are definitely up there, and what we're seeing up here is a lot more thicker panels too. Not the TNGs, but a lot more. We've got a couple of actual mills from Brazil selling on here now, and we're seeing a lot more imported stuff again. So that's a good thing. So let's go take a look at the framing composite, Matt, and see what that looks like.
Still trickling up.
Still trickling up on an upward trajectory. Now, at that framing at that meeting yesterday, do any of you people there look at your index?
Yeah, and actually, they were. One guy asked me when we were at the BCMC about isolate, make a framing package for Doug fir and a framing package for hem fir and for eastern spruce, western spruce, southern pine, and kind of use some different variables. So I'm going to look at that, but I got a feeling you're going to find out it's not going to be any different. It's still going to be the same delivered price for your product into your local market. It's still, and all we're looking for, really what we're looking for is a barometer. We're not looking for it to specifically, like what's your exact number on your framing package, but we're looking at, is it trending higher, is it trending lower, and what can you expect for it to be in the coming months? Like right now, for a builder, your framing package is probably as low as it's been in 12 months, and this is going to be the low. It's going to start trickling higher going forward because that rolling 6-week or 2-month inventory that your supplier has is now the inventory costs are going to start going a little higher.
Right. Gotcha. One of the things, if looking at different species and packages, the only thing I could see that could help with, and the more optionality that buyers have on product, the more optionality they give sellers, the better price they're going to give, right? Like
Yeah.
for instance, I don't think a lot of home builders know down in the Houston market. These markets are all different. They ship a lot of times dry Doug fir, green Doug fir, hem fir, whitewoods, spruce, eastern, western, everything to the job sites there. So, but they charge them the same number, right?
Yeah, they have to list it in their SKU it's just listed in the SKU as 2x4 framing composite framing, light structural framing, and that's
any builders that are listening to this. That's the one thing you should know: the optionality that you're getting charged and the optionality you can use, because sometimes there are $100 or $200 differences in species that people are shipping you, and if you know that value of those species when you're negotiating a 30-day contract, you can, on $100 or $200 or $300 or house project, you can cut a fat hog, if that makes sense, right? And I think that's one thing, Matt, that maybe these guys are asking is like, but there's some markets like Dallas or Austin where you have to have premium product of spruce, right?
I still noticed lately too that the guy that buys the lumber or the lady that buys the lumber for a home builder doesn't just buy lumber. They're
Yes.
buying countertops and
Everything.
chips, sheetrock and shingles and nails and everything. And they honestly, they don't have time to sit down and evaluate the lumber market like the people that are selling them do. Because the guy that's selling you lumber sells you lumber, and he does it all day long.
Yeah.
And you can't just drop in and out of it thinking that you're going to be right on top of things. So it's the communication thing is absolutely critical. I mean, sitting in on these conversations and listen to what we all have to say about the market situation for 30 minutes at a time, a couple times a week, can really keep you informed and save you a lot of money, and just give you the confidence to act with with certainty, like whether you're going to make a counter or book your wood early, book your wood late, however you're going to do it. But
but Chris is on here.
At least you got to act like you know what you're doing, or you're going to.
Chris is on here. I talked to Chris at the framing summit, and like he said, mix and match Southern pine and spruce all day long in Wisconsin, right? Chris wears 100 hats. He's running job sites, he's running labor, he's doing everything. So it's when he knows what his variables are and what his optionality is, it's great. So our goal at Materials Exchange is to make sure we give buyers that never had the option. They look at all the optionality, so they know what the best price is on different things. So they, I always attribute it like the one time when I was in college and never played cards before and sat down with a bunch of poker players. Well, they took all my money because guess what? They had done it a lot of times before, and they knew the move before anything, right? So,
right.
And all it is about education. If somebody does something 100 times a day, all day, they're probably going to be better as somebody that just does it 10% of 2 or 3 times a day, right? So, but we can boost that 10% and get more, get you. It should be your goal as a buyer and a seller to know what you should and shouldn't or can and can't do on a phone call immediately.
The cool thing about what you guys offer is you can put up just a 2x4 ranch for maybe a 2x4 14 or 16 or something like that you use for plate stock, and just have it in there for give me a price on inland, coastal, Doug fir, dried Doug fir, fir larch, southern yellow pine, and you have that barometer, and you look and see all the time what's the relationship between? Is there something funky going on right now where another species out of whack, and I can do some switching over, and you can do that without even having to really call around for inquiries. Just put it on the platform and just get a price on it. You can see those variances pretty quickly.
Yeah, that sounds great. Well, Matt, look at good feedback. I think everybody should go to Layman's Lumber Guide, sign up for it. The great thing is he's going to make you take it for free for the first. And so basically,
don't bring money. Do not bring money.
And at Materials Exchange, mxlumber.com, we're going to make you sign up for free because we think it's worth that much, right? And this isn't a David Hasselhoff commercial for selling Pluto TV or anything. This is mxlumber.com, right? And this is about
like Joe Theismann and Joe Namath say, I'm getting what I deserve.
We want you to have more transparency and be a better buyer and seller, and basically join the 21st century where everybody's doing things digitally and still keeping your network of friends that you talk to on the phone all the time. Heck, you could trade on Materials Exchange, mxlumber.com, and call me and I'll talk to you about what's going on in football and all that, if that makes you feel better.
Kids softball.
All the good stuff.
How your wife driving you crazy, all that stuff.
Bow hunting, the new craft beer, all that. I can talk to you, and you can still point and click and buy and sell on here. So
just like signing up for Materials Exchange and Layman's Lumber Guide, the therapy is free.
Exactly. Well, Matt, I'll let you back to your beautiful artwork behind your head there.
Yeah, I like that condo portrait up there. It's
a great condo portrait of 2 macaws somewhere in the.
It's not Myrtle Beach. I can tell you they're not down here.
All right, Matt. Have a great week.
You too. Thanks, buddy.